Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.
I'm Jim Check. You're watching Now Media. Sitting with me, Luke Stack, City Councilor. Longest serving currently on council. First elected in 2011? No, 2008. 2008. So you've been around the block. Yep. 2008, 2011, 2014, 2018, 22, fifth term.
Yep.
And you've been through Sharon Shepherd, Walter Gray, Colin Bazaran, and Tom Dias.
That's right. I've had 4 mayors to work with.
4
in my
mayors.
terms.
Well, that begs the first question then. Which was the easiest mayor to work? Or let me do it even easier so that it's not doesn't give you any tough. What was the best thing about each one of the mayors when you were working with them?
Well, the first one I worked with was Mayor Shepherd, and she was very community oriented. Like her focus was very community oriented. So the nice thing about that is we had a lot of input from the public during those years. Different committees I served on, like the Castleguy Sister City Committee, and there was a youth committee, and it was interesting because we really got to hear a lot from the public in that term. Then Walter came in, and I'd have to say Walter was a lot of fun to serve with for 2 reasons. One is he's just a very nice man and a very
true statesman.
enjoyable.
I had him in here on his what was his 85th birthday? I think I had him in for an interview.
Yeah, and he is the nice thing about Walter. He's a very fun guy to work with. He's very embracing. He's got a comical way of doing stuff. So the other nice thing about that particular council is all the council members were very aligned. So we all saw things more or less the same way. We'd get complaints from time to time that you guys don't debate enough, right? But we got a lot done. That was the years that we decided it was time to try and fix the downtown and bring business back into the inner city and attract residential housing, things like that. So because none of that had happened at that point. And then Colin came in, and of course he was serving with me as a city councillor prior to being a mayor. And I think, Colin was down to business. That was a lot of policy. We spent a lot of those years doing policy. And then, of course, now with Mayor Tom Dias, I was a little concerned off the start because he hadn't been in municipal politics. But one thing I learned about the mayor is he's a very quick study. And of course, he brings his business acumen to the city and his CEO approach to running things. So he's been very focused and very effective at leading our council on a strategic plan.
Okay, so the negative, because that's obviously the easy part, right? So the negative on each one of those, if you could have changed one thing, or one of the things that you thought wasn't a shining moment for the mayors.
For the mayors?
And I'll give you my thoughts.
I always like to look at the bright side of people. I don't usually look at the downside.
People always want to hear what could have been better, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, what could have been better, going back again to Sharon, is I think the citizens felt she had actually swung too far into the committee. Everybody should be at the table model. And so that's one of the reasons I think we got Walter Gray reelected.
That was a referendum, though, too, right? That was the West Kelowna referendum. Sharon Shepherd.
It happened just about that time, but we stayed completely out of that referendum.
No, she did make a comment, though. I'll just bring it back to that, where she said that if you don't want to join Kelowna, you can't use the name Kelowna in your name.
Okay.
It became West Kelowna.
I remember our official position at the time was we should have nothing to do with it. This is a West Kelowna decision for West Kelowna. And as you remember, it was nip and tuck.
Yeah, it was almost like the Quebec referendum, right?
Yeah, so it was so close, but they made the decision that was best for them.
And then Walter?
With Walter, I can't really think of much of a downside with Walter. I just really enjoyed serving with him. Nothing comes to mind, really.
Great communicator for sure, Walter. I mean, that comes from his radio days, right?
Yeah, and funny. He was always doing something entertaining. Like the meetings were a lot of fun in those days. And we haven't had so much fun in council since his time. I think the issues are a little more serious. They're more presenting, sometimes daunting. And so a lot of our time on council is we're really rolling up our sleeves looking for ways to solve problems.
And then Colin?
I found Colin was generally good to work with, but he definitely had his own way of wanting to do things. And if you happen to align with it, you'd be on the ins with him. But if you didn't really align with his thinking, then you were pretty much on the outs. And I enjoyed a little bit of both. For a couple of the years where we were quite close, and then toward the end of his term, I don't think my views aligned with him so much. So he was pretty much to himself at that point.
I can recall some of the things from some of the councils, because I talked to quite a few of the councillors, and then some of the comments back were like what you just said was basically if you went out of line, you kind of faced a bit of a wrath or a cold shoulder from not towing the line. When it's kind of different than like it's not a party system, right? It's just you represent the people that voted for you, and it seemed to kind of like, I don't know, maybe it was the COVID era too. Do you know what I mean? Maybe it was that controlling the message kind of thing. But it seemed odd that when councillors would come in here and say, I'm not allowed to say this, I'm going to get in trouble. I mean, get in trouble from who, right? Yeah.
Well, there is a collegiality that takes place out of council, and there's 9 people. And some things that I think the public don't sometimes appreciate is that each council member gets 1 vote. Yeah. The mayor gets 1 vote. So to be effective as a city councillor, you have to have the support of at least 4 other council members. So if you want to introduce a motion or if you want to advance a particular initiative, if you're all by yourself and nobody else agrees with you, you're dead in the water.
You're just noise.
You're just noise, literally, and I've seen that time and time again.
So you got to negotiate, right?
You have to work together. You have to have at least some collegiality, as I mentioned, between the different players. And if it is an in and out type of situation, going back to that former example, it's hard to work together to get things done.
Yeah. And then Tom?
Tom has been very effective. Really not too much of a downside, other than just it took him a little bit of time, I think, to come up to his full capacity. I'd say the first year.
He's got almost a year left anyway. He's got
but he, as I said, he was a very quick study, and I've
he has a lot of
I've been surprised actually how well I've gotten along with the mayor. I wasn't quite sure when he came in what his views were and how he was going to approach things, but conveniently for me, I guess, much of the things that he wants to pursue are very similar to mine, and so we've actually had a very good working relationship that way.
And your background and your bio is you're kind of like in social housing, right? And that's kind of like
a little bit of a balance. Like most of my career was in developing housing, but so the interesting thing about that, it is in the nonprofit sector, but the work I do is very much the same work that Stoller Construction does, or Skooka Construction, or some of these others, because it's in the business of building housing, zoning properties, winning funding, getting contracts, administering contracts. So I had quite a bit of business involvement, even though it's a nonprofit organization.
One of the successful programs for the Liberals has been that no GST on purpose-built rentals, and we've seen quite a few purpose-built rentals go up in Kelowna, I think, and then also Kelowna got some infrastructure money, right? From $31 million. And is that all been delivered to Kelowna now, or are we still waiting on a piece of that?
We're waiting for a little bit of it to come in as of the end of last year, but the work is in place to secure it. But I don't know if the GST I fully support it. I think it was a great move, but I don't think it had a direct impact in our city yet, because that was just introduced fairly recently.
No, I'm talking about the no GST on rental purpose homes on the construction side of it.
But for a lot of the nonprofits, we already had that.
Okay, you already had that.
Yeah, so we were in the nonprofit sector I was in. But yes, that is a worthwhile thing. But I have to say, going back, the city of Kelowna had offered all types of incentives for rental housing as well. Like we had a 10-year tax-free benefit.
So there's lots of incentives.
So that was an incentive. And then there was also some grant money that we made available over the years. So I think some of those incentives, based on and combined with lower interest rates, actually had more of an impact than the most recent implementation. However, saying that most recent decision is a good decision.
Yeah. And then it's been a long time since we've had vacancy rates at the level they're at right now. So that's a good news for Kelowna as we start to see incentives go up and also starting to see rents come down, right?
That's what I'm hoping for. Right? It's been dramatic, actually. I was just looking back, and that was one of the stats I just went. Back in 2021, we had half of 1% vacancy rate. And most of my career in Kelowna, we were hovering around like 1% to 0%. So to see it go up to 3.8% last year, now we're up to 6.4%. I literally have never seen those. And the actual rate's
always a little bit like higher, actually, right?
Because they
push out the numbers and stuff like that.
Partly that, but also CMHC doesn't look at all the private homes. Like it won't. Like if you owned a particular suite, you were renting it out, and if it was vacant, it would not be counted. So. But still, now that we're up at the 6.5%, it's almost like the pendulum is swung. I don't know if we would want it to be much higher than that.
No, because then the developers start,
Yeah.
stop building.
Yeah,
right?
because you need the cash flow.
Yeah.
So what I am hoping though is that with some of the newer buildings, that those rents, they will have to be established based on cost. But some of the older stock around our city, their rents don't need to be as high as they are. And I'm really hoping that if there is some vacancy, that some of the older buildings will then offer incentives and start lowering and bringing their rents back down to what I think is a more reasonable level, because I think they're too high.
Which brings me to one of the more contentious issues that in BC, especially in Kelowna with tourism, where we've seen a lot of the tourist operators, and I did some interviews with some of the business owners saying that the Airbnb policy hurt their business. They've closed businesses, and then some of the people, especially in the ones that the city of Kelowna zoned and were sold as, we're talking about Aqua, we're talking about Brooklyn, we're talking about those, and they feel like the government, in their words, expropriated those properties for them, and a lot of them are underwater, can't sell them because they're below what they owe on them, and they can't cash flow them. You understand cash flow and all that.
Absolutely.
So they feel that they're stuck between a rock and a hard
place. And they went into it in good faith.
I mean,
they looked at the zoning, they looked at the policy,
they
all the decision making, all of their due diligence would have indicated this would have been a good business decision, and I think for many years it was. Right?
Is there some sunshine in the future for these people?
Yeah, I think there's going to be a major correction this year. And just going back to that, for the record, that was a provincial policy that was downloaded onto us, and we at the city, although we were supportive of roping in short-term rentals to some degree, we were not supportive of taking the rights away from those
that were sold as and zoned as
units that were sold as, well, we used to call it tourist commercial. And if you were in the tourist commercial zone, you were entitled to rent your property out. So we've always supported that. We didn't get any positive feedback from the province when we pitched them saying, look, we'll go along with the stuff that you want us to do, but that particular item should be
It seems like it's a hill they want to die on, because I've interviewed Brenda Bailey a couple times and the Premier himself on those, and I've asked those questions, including Loyal Woolridge when he was running for NDP and wanted a Made in Kelowna solution. And they just don't seem to want to move on that one.
But we're at a position now where we can move. Now the question will be how fast. And so now that we've hit 2 years in a row of vacancy above 3%, we're entitled to request an adjustment to the short-term rental policy. The thing that we're wrestling with at the moment is the province is saying they don't want to make that adjustment until next November, or this November, November 26th. Yeah, and we don't want to miss the tourist season, particularly with all the great events that we have coming to town. So what we would like to do is see that policy amended at an earlier date. But just to be clear, I'm not saying we want to open up short-term rentals everywhere, willy-nilly. We want to, at least from my perspective, I want to focus on the designated buildings. The people that lost their rights, I want to see them restored.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? The other one that Ken Sim has made a surprise announcement, right? I mean, he's wants to, and they've approved it actually, the City Council voted to approve a 0% property tax increase for 2026 for the City of Vancouver, which is, they were looking at a 6 to 7% increase, but Ken Sim said, find ways to save money. And Steve McNall is currently working on a story here in Kelowna, and the numbers for the past, I think he's got 12 years since 2015, compounded is 57% increase in property taxes since 2015. So 3.2, 411, 384, 3641.
It's typically between 3-4%.
Yeah, 4, 3.94, 378, 472, 434, and 437, which is preliminary number. When you something going on when you look at that, what Ken Sim is doing, and you look at that, and is there almost like a sense of entitlement sometimes that we got to do 4? Like, is it just like 4 is kind of like the number we're going for, just like, like we just stay the course?
I don't know if entitlement's the right word, Jim. I think it's more the strategy we've been following is to try and be consistent as much as possible, because and just for the record, going back to my earliest time on council, we actually came out one year with a 0% plan. But then we had to look at what was going to be cut. So there's no way you can keep it at 0% from my experience, where you're not going to cut stuff. So for instance, rather than sweeping the streets 3 times this year, we're going to sweep them 2 times this year. And so basically at the end of the day, I do think it does have an impact on services. I think a little bit of saving can be found here and there, but by and large, when you look at the bulk of it, it means less RCMP, less firefighters.
Yeah.
You know, trim these things down. And so basically what I've been wanting to avoid over my term on council is I don't want to see these spikes up and down. And we also, like they're talking 0% in Vancouver, but they also had a year where I think they were 9%. So we haven't seen like a 9 or 10% hit in Kelowna. But if you actually average it out over the last 5 years, Kelowna is actually at the very bottom of the heap. We've had the least tax increases, I think, of any municipality of our size over that period of time, because others have had quite large spikes. So the strategy that I support and has been a city strategy is to keep those tax increases steady, so people know what we're looking at.
But they seem to be going up though, 3.78, 4.72, 4.34, because the number is, when it's 4 of a bigger number, it's always more though too. Do you know what I mean? Like 4% on 10 years is 4% is way bigger than 4% 10 years ago, right?
No.
So shouldn't that number be shrinking if we're kind of trying to keep the level of service?
We'll keep the level of service, but we're also one of the fastest growing communities in the city, or in the country. Pardon me. So if we keep services the way they are, that means we're not going to see a new Parkinson Rec Center.
Is there savings though in like AI and stuff like that? Like, is there ways to do some
and we're
things
pursuing that. And if you had talked to our city manager, I think he probably would have featured that, right? That we're trying to look at ways to do that. We're also trying to really make building permits very quick and easy, all online, development applications online, paying taxes online. We've actually been really
I think
focusing
I did a
on
whole
doing
show
all
with
that.
Doug there on that, and just on, he said he wants to make it kind of like the Netflix of city services. Right?
But what I hear, there's sort of two stories in Kelowna. And so one of the stories is we actually need a lot more services for our population. Yes, we've been growing at fairly fast rates, but we haven't kept up in our sports fields. We haven't kept up in our ice rinks. We haven't kept up in our gyms. Like, we have hardly any gyms in town. So
I got a gym right here.
Yeah, you got a gym there. Yeah, well, so like, we got an old Parkinson Rec gym.
No, that is
one
beautiful
gym,
that should be a beautiful facility.
We're just behind, and if we don't spend some money to bring some of our facilities up to date, we're going to get further behind. So the idea that, hey, we don't have to spend any money and we'll just keep things the same. Try and get a spot in a swim class today. Try and get a pickleball, get into the pickleball club based on the number of courts we have. It's almost impossible. And so we can't put our head in the sand and say, no, we're just going to, no more tax increases, but we're not going to grow the city either. We're not going to do that road extension. We're not going to build facilities. If we take that attitude, I actually think in the long term, we will decrease the quality of life of our city. We need to focus on some of these things.
Crime and safety, big one in British Columbia. The mayor and council wrote a letter that had big impact. We talked about it lots.
Yeah, we put a big focus on that, and city staff did an excellent job, and that's where we came up with the 15 prolific offenders. We wanted to package it. We wanted to package it in such a way that people kind of get without getting into the details of the report, you can understand what the problem is. And it's definitely been a problem, and it's been driving our mayor and our council crazy, to be honest with you. We probably talk about crime and safety more than any other subject. It's our number one priority. And I'm really disappointed, actually, that in our third year of this term, that we wouldn't be seeing better impact than we have.
And I talked to the BC NDP cabinet minister on that, or the minister on that file, and we were talking about pilots, and they're going to run a pilot. They're running a pilot here. But then I go to Tokyo, and I go there for 10 days. I don't know if you heard me say this, but there's no homelessness that I saw in 10 days in Osaka and Tokyo, largest city in the world, and no drug crisis no visible drug crisis anywhere that you could see in the subways were clean and everything was spotless, like it was well kept home, like the city. And the big thing is I went for a walk every morning at 3 o'clock, because that's how my clock works. I don't want to wake up the whole family, so I went for a walk in a strange city downtown at different spots all the time on my own at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I wouldn't do it here. Would you?
Well, I'm an early bird as well. I'm not exactly 3 o'clock, but 4:30 to 5, yes, I am. And I go downtown every morning at that time.
But you go for a walk by yourself downtown?
I don't walk. I'm actually in my car, but
But would you walk around downtown right now? Like
I would. I don't, but I would be looking over my shoulder. Yeah. I wouldn't do it. I remember I went to Japan years ago too as well, and I was very impressed. I mean, you could.
So they can be done. That's my point. It can be done. So I guess
but
the
it's a
question
culture, a
is,
very different culture over there.
Yeah.
I mean, they wouldn't even put a
so maybe we
cigarette
need to
butt on
change
there.
our culture, though.
I remember they
right?
wouldn't put a cigarette butt out.
There's no garbage anywhere.
Yeah,
No
I mean,
garbage
everyone
anywhere.
carried their own ashtray.
And there's no
remember.
garbage cans anywhere.
That's because no one puts garbage out.
Yeah, that's right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It is. So, like somewhere along the line, we got to find a middle, right? Because right now I get tons of people, talking about, businesses that are, getting their windows smashed in, like for a small business, and you can appreciate that. For a small business, you're just starting up and you get your windows smashed in, and not once, twice, 3 times in a month. I remember a pizza place, for them, it's $1,000 every time for the window, and you got to sell a lot of pizza to cover the window.
Yeah.
But even on the other side of it, on the human side of it, the person smashing the window, the consequences are better than their current situation. Do you know what I mean? Like they break the window because they want the Coca-Cola that's sitting on the other side of the window, and if they get caught, you know what I mean? Like the consequences of getting maybe a warm bed and a meal is better than what they're currently experiencing. So how do we fix all that? And I know that's a thing you guys have been struggling with for years, right?
Yeah, we have. I know the very first thing we did in this term was having the mayor's task force on crime, and came up with a number of things. So see, the interesting thing is we've actually been doing the recommendations that everyone said this would be. Let's try this, right? So we've beefed up our business improvement areas. We've given them more money for cleaning, etc. We keep adding our RCMP. We add more bylaw officers. So we're focusing on all stuff, but we're not seeing the results. And as a council member, I have to look at the public and say, I'm sorry, we're just not getting the results. And as a matter of fact, I think we've actually seen a bit of a turn where I think some of the break-in entries in the commercial sector are done more like by professionals. Like it's not just
because
there's
they're
a
making money
smash and grab guy, but we had a neighborhood optometrist who had just set up.
It's my neighbor, actually.
And
so
in 7, like I can almost see their store from where I live. And within 7 minutes, these guys went
cleaned out
$20,000 worth of merchandise, and that is not some guy just getting angry and hitting a window. That's an organized crime issue, and so I know one of the things that I'll be, I'm one voice on council, but one of the things I'm going to be really talking to the RCMP about is I really think there has to be more focus on some of what I think is more like an organized pro-crime activity.
But there needs to be some punishments. Like the letter you guys did was so powerful because it shows you the problem, right? It really highlights the problem is that catch and release, right? And I remember...
And our RCMP get frustrated because they can pick this guy up and then they got to put him out again.
I arrest the same guy 3 times in a day and he beats me out while I'm still doing the paperwork. And then the court system's not set up so that it doesn't get processed. And then, like the 32 failures to appear, 32 failures to comply. If you're the judge, you're sitting there, 32 failures to appear, you can go. What is it, 50? Is it 60? Is it 70?
The common man, and myself included, would think, well, no, that guy should be doing some time in jail. He should be off the streets.
Well, they shouldn't let him out.
Yeah,
32 failures. He's not showing up for court.
Yeah, so pick him up and take him off the street.
It's like comedy, right?
Yeah, but I don't. So we have done the advocacy, and I would have to compliment both our city staff and our mayor, who's sort of been our lead on this, has been very effective at doing it. But will it bring the change we want? And this is the frustrating part is, we have a little segment of it, which is bylaws, RCMP, and our own cleanliness that we have to look on our streets. But we really depend on these other guys to come up with things. But as we know, as you go further up government chain, the results seem to be slower. Like the province is slower, then the federal government beyond that seems to be slower. So we have a real challenge, and I don't have
the laws are made by other people, and then enforcement.
And it takes time. It takes time to see them implemented, and I'm frustrated because we wanted to see that the general public, after 4 years on this council, would look at it and say, I think things are better. I think crime has gone down.
I think what the word that people are kind of leery of is task force. When they hear that, another task force, because Journey Home, and I could go list, you can list them all.
But they've had some really great outcomes. You forget that.
But you know what I mean? But they hear that and they say, oh, great, another task force, right?
It's
another
just
committee,
you guys spinning your wheels, trying to look like you're busy, but nothing's being accomplished. I get it.
Yeah, so that's the frustration for sure. And then they go downtown, they see it, or they experience it, right, in their business. But
you have to, I would say to the public who's listening on this, it is a balance. Like you do need to be looking forward and looking for solutions. At the same time, you need to be implementing the things that came out of the last task force. So in fairness, the last task force that wrapped up several years ago had a number of recommendations, and all of those recommendations are being pursued and put in place. Like, we're bringing the RCMP auxiliary back to Kelowna, right? and they should be on the streets this year. We've added lots more police officers. We've added more bylaw officers. We've brought bylaw officers permanently up to Rutland. Now we'll have 4 in the Rutland area. So each of the recommendations are actually being acted on. So those things are actually happening. So I'm hoping they'll have an impact, but we can't also just stop looking forward and saying, well, what else can we do? You know, what other things can we do to improve this? And there's a lot of moving pieces to this.
You've been a councillor for a long time, and what would you look at as kind of like the top 3 things that you've been a part of through those years?
Over the years?
Yeah.
Well, obviously, like I come from an area of housing, so that's always been a huge interest to me. So when I see that we have attracted so much rental housing that we've almost gone from the lowest vacancy rate in the country to one of the highest over these last years, I'm very proud of the fact, because I think that didn't just happen. It happened because there was a focus, there was incentive put in place, and a little bit of good luck. I mean, you have to align with the bank interest rates and other factors, but putting it all together, we've had a huge impact on attracting rental housing to our community. And I'm very proud of that. Secondly, the whole homeless thing. Although we still have homelessness, I shudder to think, and back to your journey home comment, if we had never done anything and said, you know what, homelessness is not our concern, this is a provincial concern, let's not get involved, we would have a problem so big, I don't even think people could even imagine it. Because over the years, like we've just built in the last couple of years, 180 tiny homes. Mm-hmm. Well, people are living in those homes. Yeah. They're in them today. Where would they all be if they weren't there? Prior to that, we built about 400 supportive housing projects, units throughout multiple projects. All of those are being occupied. So we have had a huge impact on helping people who are needing help with supportive housing and stuff. And if we hadn't done any of that, sometimes I look at some of our neighboring municipalities, and I'll pick on Penticton right now because they just turned down one of these tiny home projects. And they're saying, no, we don't want that, it's not good enough. Well, so all those people are going to just remain on the streets. There's going to be no improvement at all. So I think I'm actually very proud of how much impact we've had. We've done a big job in that area. So those are two. Another biggie that comes to my mind is we talked about revitalizing the downtown. Now the crime is working a little bit against us at the moment, but if you look at downtown today versus 15 years ago, it's like night and day. Like we have
there's a lot of stuff that you can be very, very proud of what's happened in the city.
Many towers where we have residential housing. Interior Health decided to locate downtown. We've got UBC building a beautiful new tower downtown. It's going to bring all kinds of students and research work into our core. If you look at our park system, we have done a major push on parks these last years, like the Pandosy Waterfront Park. We're fixing up again our main park, Glenmore Recreation Park. It's been long overdue. So when I look at some of the expansion of that, I'm really proud of what the city's accomplished.
Bridge, second crossing, any thoughts on that?
Well, we've had thoughts on it, but the provincial government has basically said they're not even interested in looking at it. We did a very detailed task force study with them some years ago, well, 4 years ago, maybe 5 now. And their conclusion was not within the next 30 years.
Is there an alternative to kind of like fix a secondary route like the Penticton down the rail trail or something? You know what I mean? Like
nothing official. I've heard people talk about it, but the province hasn't looked at it. The only thing that they've really been interested in doing is adding an extra lane, or like the existing bridge can have another lane. And we also could do some improvements coming off into the city of Kelowna, where I think we could make traffic flow better.
Yeah, too many lights.
But that's the only thing I see in the next 10 years from all the communication I've seen with the province.
What do you like? Obviously, we're heading into an election year, and I don't want to get into the election, but like, if you're on council again for 4 more years, what do you want to see get done? Like, what is? I mean, you're still young. Yeah. You may have a couple more, 3 more terms left in you. What do you want to see get done for the city of Kelowna, for the residents?
Well, one of the biggies for me that I want to see done right now is I want to see all of our, we call it the Building a Stronger Kelowna, the BSK project. They're all launched now, but that's one part of it. Now we have to actually get them all built, right? So that's the Parkinson Rec Center, the Glenmore Rec Center, a new community center for Rutland, a new community center for the Mission down beside H2O. and build all those out. And with those actually comes a whole bunch of daycare. Each of those new facilities are going to have daycare facilities as well, like up to 90 children, which is another huge need our community has, is daycare. So really over these next, let's say 3 years, because any of the ribbon cuttings on all these will be in the next term, bringing them all to conclusion. I remember when I first got elected many, many years ago, the H2O was under construction at the time. And at the time, that was the biggest project Kelowna had ever seen. It was $48 million. And I had the great honor of being able to be one of the ribbon cutters on that. But I didn't start that. That was started with the council before. So one of the things I want to see is the next council have those opportunities to see all these facilities come online.
Do you see mayor and councils working with other, you guys have worked together with the Central Okanagan and sometimes Thompson Okanagan. You've gotten better results when you've worked together for pressure points on the province and or the federal government.
In some
Do you
areas.
see, yeah, you know, like with that last letter, it had more power when it was sent out. And then also the interior health thing. The interior health seems to be a problem. We see these closures all the time.
Yeah,
Not a lot of them in, we've had the pediatric problem here.
We've
had the OBGYN in Kamloops.
But I've noticed those closures are showing up more and more around the province. And if you're following it, I mean, we
follow it every day. We put it up every day.
Yeah,
100 Mile House today.
Some of the now starting to show up on the island. So originally it was just some of the smaller
Richmond,
communities,
all kinds of
but
stuff
now we're
like that.
seeing it kind of creep into a lot
Everywhere,
of our bigger
right? Everywhere,
communities,
right.
including
But-
Kamloops and others. So interior health has a very big challenge ahead of them, and they really need to get on top of it.
And you guys did do. I don't. You were you were part of that council that wrote that letter.
Yeah.
A lack of communication. I did interview the new CEO here. It was tough to get an interview with the past one, and communication was cited. Is communication better now with the new CEO?
I can't directly speak to that truthfully. The communication, I think, is open between the mayor and the CEO. We have not had a one-on-one as a council with them, so I really can't speak to that. But I think we are optimistic that it will be better going into this next term.
Will you push for it to be better?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean,
Well, it's very
it shouldn't just be
important.
the mayor. It should
No.
be like, you know what I mean?
And also our
Everybody should
city
have
manager,
access
though,
to
has a very good relationship
Yeah.
with the senior people at Interior Health. I think on the staff level, I think those communications are quite effective at the moment. But back to what you're saying, I think about working together, one of the best things that I've seen over the last years is the mayor's task force. Not the mayor's task force, but the joint mayors that get together.
Yeah.
And we've seen them come together and take a particular position. I've seen more positive outcomes out of the mayors working together than I have out of like the UBCM, like when we make a resolution provincially and we all go down and
Those are
vote
just
on
like
it and
parties.
stuff. Well, no, but everyone, we do the business and we make the resolutions, we pass them, but then they kind of go into the
Vapor?
the ether zone and we don't really see great outcomes. But I have noticed when all the mayors get together and say, we have a real problem and we have an issue.
Like they're
They
good
can
political
focus
bodies,
at
right?
that.
Pressure points.
Yeah,
right?
and I've
So-
seen actually better results. And actually to Colin Bazran's as a compliment, he was one of the ones that first got on that mayor's group and did a very good job at getting issues brought to the surface. And currently our mayor is doing the same thing. He's continued on in the same footsteps and done a very good job.
One of the reasons I'm doing this, all the interviews with the city council, is Sharon Simpson came in to see me. Sharon, you know Sharon Simpson.
Oh, I know her well. She's one of our best critics.
That's right.
Yeah, she doesn't like anything I do.
There you go. I promised Sharon Simpson that I would get all the city councilors in and the mayor, and I talked to the mayor already, and asking a question. She felt that city council has been muzzled and not allowed to talk to her. And this relates mostly to the property that you guys purchased there at Kerry Park in that area, at the foot of Bernard there.
Kerry Park.
The one you purchased from Westport.
The hotel site.
Yeah, the hotel site
Yeah.
there. And she was trying to get answers and she couldn't get any answers. And do you feel muzzled at all?
No.
No.
I haven't. I mean, you invited me for an interview today. How long
Showed
did it
up.
take to respond?
You were the first guy.
Yeah, so no, I think, we do have to recognize that the mayor is our official spokesperson.
Right.
I mean, and that's something that we have to acknowledge. But at the same time, I feel if I'm speaking for myself as a councillor, I don't pretend to speak for the city, right? Because I don't have that position. But as an individual, I don't feel muzzled. I'm willing to speak to things. The one thing that we have been encouraged to not to do, though, and maybe this is what she's saying, is for us as city councillors or mayor to speak about things before we actually talk about them at the council table. Like quite frequently, someone will say, I want to know your opinion on item B and how you're going to vote on that. And it's like, we haven't even had our meeting. We haven't had our council discussion on it. How can I tell you how we're going to vote until we put it in the public arena? And that's one thing. I think we've been more careful to say, no, let's just not talk about things if we haven't yet discussed them as a team. And I think that's fair.
I would agree with you there. What would you say? I had two more questions and it just escaped me, but they'll come to me in a second.
No worries.
As we head into an election year, when does like campaigning start, and when does like regular business, and then you start to see people starting to talk a little bit? Like,
well, people will already start talking now. Now, as soon as the calendar turns over to 2026, this being an election year, people will start talking. I noticed a press story the other day that there may be a new party running in.
That's what I was going to ask you. There's the question.
There
I
you
was going
go.
to say that conservative. We got a press release that said that's the first time I've ever seen it.
Yeah, municipal conservative group of some
so they're going to
sort.
run a slate, I imagine, or they're going to run a party. I'm not sure what.
I just read a little bit about it, but what they're trying to do is align people with similar political values and ideals, and run them under a particular banner. So we've always been independent in Kelowna. So when I ran as a councillor, I would just be running under my name as Luke Stack. I wouldn't be a Liberal or an NDP.
There's been a few slates that have run
though,
right? Remember the four change? You were part of that four change, were you?
I was a survivor of the four change.
Yeah, because they were trying to four change you out.
Yeah.
Right?
Fortunately, I didn't get marked as one of the ones that they wanted to get rid of, so I was able to squeak through that. But four of my colleagues did go down at that time, and new colleagues came in.
Was part of that
Colin came in, as well as Maxine DeHart and Gail Given was another. And and I enjoyed working with all of them very much over the years. But since that time, there's been a couple other slates that have been put together, and they haven't done so well. Quite frequently, they don't hardly get any votes. So
there was one that wanted to flood Bernard.
Yeah, that's right. Put in channels and do all kinds of things.
Hey, you got to have comedy, right?
Well, you did, and it was pretty funny. But here's the thing I would say about that is, like, firstly, I've enjoyed being an independent. I like not having to say, I'm going to vote the way a Liberal Party votes, or I'm going to vote the way a Conservative Party tells me to vote. I like having my independence. And I actually, in many ways, think it serves our city well that we're not aligned like that. But I can also see the attraction of why someone wants to have everyone on council have the same view, so that we can drive the policies that we think forward are the best. But my question then would be so who are these people? Who are these?
Who's in the back?
Or who are the people that are going to be sitting on council? I mean, so you may run under a particular banner, but what if you aren't a very effective communicator? Or what if you're not a very effective colleague on a council where votes matter? I can see there's pros and cons. I can see the attractiveness of it, but whether it will work, I've seen it tried at least 3 times, and I've only seen it work once.
And then the ward system comes up every now and then. Is Kelowna big enough for a ward system? I mean, big cities do it, but it seems fairly small yet to even talk about a ward system here.
It was raised. One of our council members brought that up some months ago, and it didn't get past first base. No one in the city of Kelowna is interested in going to a ward system.
It's still a small enough town to know everybody, you know what I mean? It's not like you have 50 candidates
it's just not an issue. It's
running from Rutland and stuff like that.
And plus, there's so many downsides to a ward system. So we have a Rutland representative and a Mission representative and a Glenmore.
Just adds a bunch of complexity.
Well, what it does is it makes everyone parochial. So if you're elected as a Glenmore representative, will you be supporting the recreation center that's not in your community? No. I mean, you'll be fighting tooth and nail for Glenmore, but not looking at the whole city as a whole. So I actually think we're a small enough community that I don't think a ward system does us any good.
Last tough question, then a couple lightning round ones, and I'll let you go. Tough question, unemployment rate, Canada, we hold right now the highest unemployment rate in Canada, and a lot of that has to do with construction. It's
a bit of a surprise
on all the time, be on the ballot.
Typically we're lower, right, than most of the
construction
country.
Is really probably the driver, right?
I don't exactly know the answer to that, but I was surprised to see that we had gone up that high. It may also be a seasonal factor, like we may see some adjustment as we get back into it. But traditionally, in most of the years I've been here, Kelowna's actually had one of the lowest unemployment
I've been
rates.
saying for a while, though, like as soon as that Airbnb policy went up, the cranes came down for like stratas, and they didn't go back up. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like the rental housing was going well, but the
condo market is not doing well.
like Moval is still trying to sell their units.
Yeah.
They used to sell out in a day.
Plus, we've seen a couple that were approved. We as a council
They're-
approved
they
them
died on
for
the
a
vine, right, yeah.
condominium,
Yeah.
and they've actually come back and asked if they could convert it over to a rental.
Yeah.
So I'm not too happy to see that, because actually, yeah, we do need to have home ownership still, and because our rental
Yeah, I mean,
market
it has to be a
been
blend, right?
adjusted,
It has to be a blend. And
Yeah.
I said that at the
and
time
I think
when
we
they did
swung
it.
too far, and now
Yeah.
we need to bring it back a
I
little
said
bit.
that when it happened. I said the cranes are going to come down and they're not going to go back up. And it takes a while, right, to
does,
juice the engine again, right? To move, to you know, like start that pendulum
I
moving
agree.
again, right? And
But you know, Jim, one thing that I have seen over the years is Kelowna has always had peaks and valleys. Like, it's a slow-moving target. We've never been 100% consistent. You will either see an increase in housing, and everyone's optimistic, and we see a lot of activity, and then we see a cooling period. And the truth is, we've had a run of about 5 or 6 years where it's continually been up around.
well,
the
we could
peak.
see the peak
And
when
it's
it was
just
happening,
now
right?
starting.
Yeah.
It's come down this last year, but I had anticipated it coming for some time. I'm actually surprised that the volume that we had, as long as we had it, was unusual.
We'll do just a quick fire for people to get to know you if they don't know you. What's your favorite activity and where do you go?
Probably my favorite is I like to play pickleball. I'm part of the
There you
pickleball club in Kelowna, and quite active there, and I really enjoy it.
Dining out?
Not so much anymore. My wife is a really good cook, and I like eating most of my meals at home. So I'm not. I don't go that much.
How about favorite meal then?
Oh, my favorite meal. Oh gosh, that's a good question. Well, coming out of the turkey season, I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed that. You know, we're a traditional family in the way we would have a turkey dinner with all the trimmings
All
and
the
stuff. So
fixings,
that's
yeah.
a lot of fun. But no, I'm a pretty normal guy. Actually, I don't have a lot of.
I do have one really tough question for you, and I did ask Tom this question, and we're seeing a lot of uncertainty in British Columbia, and this has nothing to do with the city, but it is a provincial thing with the couch and land decision there.
Mhm.
And it's caused a lot of uncertainty, and some of that's leaking here. I talked to some realtors and say that the Albertans are just pausing right now. Is the city of Kelowna thinking about putting some pressure on David Eby to recall DRIPA or get some certainty back for property rights owners here in British Columbia?
Let me answer that. I won't be able to answer it to your satisfaction, but I will say I'm well aware of the Cowichan decision. We have been briefed about the implications of the Cowichan position. I'm not in a position to state where the city is going to go with that, but on a personal level, I was concerned about what I've read, and as I follow the press stories that you guys are very sufficiently covering, there's a lot of concern from a variety of perspectives, and I share those. But I also know everyone's appealing it, including the ones that won. I think there's like 8 appeals going on.
I know. There's three First Nations appealing on that same property, plus the people. And then I've done a lot, and people can go watch that. I've interviewed Jeff Moyse, the Aboriginal lawyer, about 33 years experience, 4 times. I'm interviewing him again. So we've done a lot of work on it. You can find a lot of that work in its. I know it's a provincial thing, but you guys can put pressure.
Yeah,
as well.
and I can't answer that question for you. I'm sorry.
Anything that I missed that you want to say to residents of Kelowna? Anything that?
Not so much. I guess the one thing I would say is we know about the crime issue and some of the issues, particularly in the Rutland area and downtown. Council spends a huge amount of time looking for solutions. Our staff are very focused on it. As you said, some of the papers that came out were very influential, even provincially, from an advocacy perspective. But it's an issue. If you look at our priorities as a council, our number one priority for this whole term has been crime and safety. That's where most of our focus has been. The second after that is housing and homelessness. But we have been focused on that, and we're always looking for solutions. And if we can come up with an idea that's going to be more effective, I can assure you we will implement it. I'm disappointed that many of the steps that we've taken have not driven better results. But it doesn't mean we're not going to keep trying.
And I do thank you for coming in, because accountability and answering questions to the media is so important, because I don't ask questions for myself, I ask for the public. And I think that is something that needs to be, politicians need to provide more access, both federally and provincially. And we see that in Canada, where it seems to be less and less. It's not really a municipal problem, but we see that in provincially and federally, that getting access to politicians is getting tougher and tougher.
Yeah, if people want to ask me questions, probably the most effective way is to send me an email, lstack@kelowna.ca. I look at them every day, my emails.
You go on kelowna.ca, you can see all the email addresses are right there.
They're all
for
there,
people to
and all the emails come into us. We don't hardly ever get like a written letter anymore or anything of that nature, but emails
We still
come
get
in.
written letters.
Do you? I get the odd one, a couple of Christmas cards.
We know they're
over
bad
the
when they're like
holidays.
this thick, right?
Yeah, but you know, the emails come in, they get read by the city council members. Everyone has a decision if they're going to respond or not. That's independently. If one comes into mayor and council and you send a general email to mayor and council, our mayor is the official spokesperson and he will be the one that would respond. But I get a lot of personal emails and I do my best to respond to people that write to me.
Well, I do thank you for your time. We've went over the 30 minutes. I think it was about 45. So appreciate the time. And I think, you know, like the more that people get to know their city council, the more they'll be able to ask questions.
And thank you for the opportunity to come on here. It's nice to see you in person and to have a chance to talk.
Thank you. And thank you for watching Now Media.
Coming to you live from the Now Media Newsroom.